This is a piece called This is a piece called Two Houses Don't Always Make One Home. I've grown up with two of everything. 2 birthdays, 2 Christmases, 2 houses, 2 lives. The 2 houses don't make one home. People consider themselves envious of such a life. I'm told I'm lucky. You get 2 Christmases, 2 birthdays? That must be nice. Some may say, but I disagree. I hate this dynamic and it cries out being dealt. This is a game I never played too well. At the age of 16, I've become too familiar with the law of polarity. The law that states everything in the universe has an opposite and aspect. Joy is paired with despair, light is paired with darkness. A child is split between 2 homes, which is a balance that is impossible to carry. With that, I live 2 different lives in 2 different houses and 2 different homes. In one home, I live, I thrive, I breathe, I know, I belong. If I didn't come back, the walls would miss me. There are derivatives of me in every square inch. Paint on the walls, and pillows where I sprawl, and cups in the flame, and birds, and blankets I can't seem to remember to bring to my room. My shoes by the door, and my bag on the floor, a hairbrush in every bathroom. It doesn't have my name, but everyone knows who it belongs to. It remains untouched. Simple memory. My brother and sister would ask about me as my mother's news gave out. She would call and text until her hands were frantic for rain throbs, often holding back such a powerful sob. Even my quiet stepfather would break silently at the thought of one of his precious daughters. My extended family would miss my presence and suffer in my absence. There would be a gap in the family photos where I belong. One so huge it is noticeable, felt. Who will bake the cupcakes they all ordered? Store bought just isn't the same. They miss the taste of something made. I'm not perfect, but I belong here. My mother, my dearest mother, created my life. She knows I'm peculiar, that I love Billie Eilish, that I hate peas, that I wash my hair 50 times a week, that can't ever seem to wash clothes with the blood in me, that I read. She knows when I'm spiraling and inventing myself. She knows when I'm anxious by the simple shakes of my legs. Even if I say absolutely nothing, she simply says, I know I care. She knows just how to pull me back in. My dear mother, she's not just the woman who birthed me, she's the woman who raised me with the fire in her eyes and softness in her touch. She always made me feel like I was enough. She taught me to love my curls when I needed them most. She pushed me to my limits when I was scared to go past the ropes. She ran beside me when I wanted to ride a bicycle, ready to catch me if I fell. This is the kind of mother she is. She is my best friend. I spent my first 2 Christmases with my family. I don't have to ask for anything specific. They know my taste. We spent Halloween, Thanksgiving, and even my birthday together. I wouldn't have it any other way. As a family, we laugh, we argue, we talk with no fear of judgment. I keep myself here. They're what make house number 1 my feeling to stay. In the second house, I'm not a daughter. I'm an afterthought. A guest who sleeps in a room that doesn't represent a piece of me. A wandering ghost in limbo searching for a place of rest in a world of constant chaos. This family is considered complete, but for 3 days and 2 nights, I wedge my way in and try not to pick a fight. They walk away from me in stores, leaving me aimlessly wondering, staring at things I have no interest in. Painfully anxious they might forget me in this unknown store. I sit on the edge of conversations I don't belong in, memories I'm not a part of, family photos I never appear in. There is no space on the couch for me, no place at the table. I pull up a chair and wedge myself between strangers with shared blood. We're supposed to be siblings, but how can we be siblings when we never truly share a life? We are all so different. We have tight-knit relationships. No secrets I would never have the privilege of knowing. I hold memories from 2016 while I keep making new memories in 2025. I guess you could say I'm a little behind. So excuse me, but siblings isn't a title I fit well with here. Just a ghost trapped between 2 worlds. They don't know my music, don't understand my jokes, don't ask about my passions. I don't even know where the cups in the kitchen go, or where to find a stupid spoon. Maybe it's because this house isn't mine. Why would it be? This family is complete and I'm just an extra in the movie, a piece of a puzzle. It's extra, just a collection of space for 3 days and 2 nights. My father, my dearest father, the creator of my life, he doesn't know me, just a small 4-year-old who once played his small piano. He doesn't know my favorite color, my favorite artist, my love for writing poetry, or where I speak the words he's afraid to hear. He doesn't know I spend half my nights crawling to a wall, wishing the world would just stop spinning. Or something that I hate peas. He doesn't understand the complexities. My stepmother calls me his baby, as if I don't belong to the family she's built, as if I'm just a reminder of his past life, a door she's forcing me to shut, but my foot is stuck on the threshold. He's never asked who I am now, never reached out to touch the hand of a deprived daughter who craves the attention and love of a father. He rejects her in every shape and form, partially because he doesn't need a mirror to see himself when he looks at me. He never mended the heart of a daughter who closes her eyes and thinks about the little girl who lay in her bed with Daddy watching Wreck-It Ralph, while she'd excitedly wake her to say, no butts, no cuts, no coconuts. The little girl who breaks down in tears when she saw her father in the hospital bed. The little girl who tried to detain him as best as she could. The little girl who begged and pleaded with the gods for Daddy to listen. Now she's a big girl, living her second life, only 3 days and 2 nights. A second Christmas on Christmas Day, no birthdays, no Halloween, no Thanksgiving, not even a single Father's Day. So before you envy me for my two of everything, understand the law of polarity, opposites and dualistic aspects.
Pardon interruption. I need Chloe, Brad, and Brian Martinez for dismissal at this time.
Mom and Dad, best friend and stranger, daughter and a reminder, a child stuck between two homes, only truly as one.
Again, during their contentions and anything they're reading, please remain silent. Distracted. Negative and positive. Or negative and affirmative. Y'all can go ahead and take your place. They worked real hard on this show, so let's give them another round of applause as they go up.
Sparta was a warrior society in ancient Greece that reached the height of its power after defeating rival city-state Athens in the Peloponnesian War. This ancient society's values consisted of military endurance and power, as well as loyalty to the state. On the other hand, Athens was a society that valued philosophy, democracy, and trade. Due to Sparta's greater gender equality, strong military power, and unbiased and well-rounded education system, Sparta would be the better society to live in rather than Athens. Contention 1. Gender equality was greater in Sparta. According to the article, Gender Equality in Athens and Sparta, Sparta ideals allowed for a greater level of gender equality than Athens, as they sought for all people in Sparta to be physically strong. Women in Athens were viewed more as objects, and thus their value was overlooked. Women did not have a say in the democracy of their city, nor many decisions surrounding their own lives. While Athenians focused on objectifying women, Spartans thought it right for them to be just as strong as men. According to the article, Beyond the Battlefield, the social and legal status of women in Sparta by Kira Clark, the social and legal status of women in Sparta differed from other ancient societies, as they were afforded more social mobility and rights and ownership of property than their counterparts in places such as Athens. In Plutarch's Life of Lycurgus, he notes that the lawgiver Lycurgus took particular care about the women as well as the men. While other ancient Greek societies secluded women in the home, women in Sparta were educated publicly and able to move freely in public. The status of women in Sparta compared to women in Athens provides more proof that Sparta was the better society to live in. Contention 2. Sparta had a strong military force. Because of Sparta's strong belief in military power, living in Sparta most likely meant protection from enemies. According to the article, what made the Spartan warriors so effective, the Spartans were especially known for being so effective at fighting that they were able to fight well against armies that were much larger in size than them. Sparta's formidable presence on the battlefield protected its society from collapse time after time. Not to mention, most Spartan warriors went through rigorous training and were more than capable of defending themselves. Furthermore, according to the article Ancient Sparta, The History of Spartans, written by Matthew Jones, the armors of Sparta have gone down as some of the most impressive of all time. They achieved this status during the Greco-Persian Wars, especially the Battle of Thermopylae, when a small force of Greeks led by 300 Spartan soldiers managed to fend off Xerxes and his massive armies, which included the then superior Persian immortals, for 3 days, inflicting heavy casualties. Sparta's military force is one of the most impressive and relentless powers to ever exist. People who lived in Sparta were either highly trained soldiers equipped with skills that allowed them to protect themselves and their territory, or craftsmen, traders, and laborers who lived safely within the city-state protected by its military. Contention 3. Sparta had a stronger and more fair education system than Athens. Despite popular belief, Spartan's education system was more well-rounded and more inclusive and created better citizens than Athens' education system. Their education system revolved around literature, writing, mathematics, self-defense, and basic combat skills. Spartan schools were inclusive, meaning both males and females had the opportunity to receive an education. The same cannot be said for the Athens education system. Athens' education was limited to only males. Most Athenian women never learned to read, write, or do basic mathematics. Athenian philosophers such as Plato and Socrates praised the Spartan education system. Plato remarks in a philosophical dialogue, Protagoras, they all emulated and admired and were students of Spartan education, could tell their wisdom was of this sort by the brief but memorable remarks they each uttered when they met. Writing what's on every man's lips, know thyself, and nothing too much. The Spartan education system, while also teaching important subjects, also taught strong morals. Students in Sparta were taught discipline, valor, loyalty, self-sacrifice, and virtue. These morals created patriotic citizens, and these citizens created a strong city-state. We rest. Architecture and thought. It was a city-state that developed progressive societal structure rooted in foundation in strong familial bonds and valued its members as individuals. Contention 1. Athenian societal structure allowed for an interconnected environment. Economy focused on supporting society, trading to maintain social political status, but never highlighting economic prosperity. Instead, Athenians pride themselves upon oikonomia, the management of the household. Every unit of family was crucial to the city-state. Each household's achievement was the success of all. Property, resources, and building projects were awarded to the most influential residents. Athens was organized by 4 classes: slaves, medics, women, and citizens. Even slaves participated in festivals and were respected. Athenians found it imperative that all were celebrated and treated humanely. Integrated class structure allowed for the flourishment of the city-state. The Athenian military maintained well-being of the city-state. Army and navy were great forces which defended the land and assisted in the growth of the region, thus instilling a sense of nationalism. Athenians had democracy. All male birthright citizens had equal influence on the government. Meeting about three times each month, Athenian democracy was a supported institution. The frame of Athens allowed for a collective mindset, fostered nationalism, and was a city-state that encouraged all individuals, including children. Contention 2. Athenian families were strongly connected and devoted to one another. Mothers took daily care of their children and formed unbreakable bonds with their daughters, preparing them for future household roles. Fathers, on the other hand, guided their sons in strength, leadership, and responsibility. They viewed their children as inheritors, the family's legacy, and the backbone of society. There was a strong recognition that children's intellectual needs were just as important, if not more so, than the demands of society. From birth, children were celebrated in ceremonies like amphidromia, where newborns were introduced to the family and honored with gifts. Archaeological evidence shows that Athenians children had toys like dolls, rattles, and miniature chariots, and often kept pets, promoting emotional development. Recreation had a purpose. It taught creativity, joy, social behavior, and critical thinking. As they grew, education became central. Girls learned at home, focusing on modesty, restraint, and domestic skills, and fundamental needs such as reading, writing, and math. Boys were sent to school where they studied reading, writing, music, math, and physical education. The goal wasn't just to learn, it was to become a citizen who could think, contribute, and lead. This holistic upbringing produced citizens who could contribute to society in diverse and meaningful ways. Contention 3. The Athenians were a group who indulged in creative expression, embraced new ideas, and allowed people to compose the culture, not the culture to impose on the people. Parmenides, a thinker who was close to Plato, came to be known as the father of metaphysics. Although his work was said to be difficult to understand, his ability to contemplate and teach about theories of the universe and reality was admired by Athenians. This shows Athenian acceptance and how people were allowed to contribute to the philosophical world in Athens. Another example is an artist named Praxiteles, who created a beautiful yet extremely controversial sculpture of Aphrodite. It depicted the deity naked, reaching for a towel, and caused much debate among scholars as to the appropriateness of the work. Nonetheless, having debate and controversy while nonetheless, Praxiteles was revered for its graceful marble structure. Praxiteles' work contributed to the culture and allowed for debate and controversy while still retaining respect and appreciation for the work of someone else. Athens was known for having many festivals where all the people would come together and celebrate the culture's deities. Poets, playwrights, artists, the wealthy and the poor are more than welcome to participate, regardless of social status or occupation. This exemplifies Athenian acceptance and respect for all members of the city-state and how it embraced individual creativity. Athens nurtured art and philosophy, offering space for creativity and expression. Its democracy gave citizens a voice. Its economy uplifted families. Its military defended its people without defining them. Athenian children were raised with care, given a proper education, and grasped a purpose in life, not stripped of their innocence or reduced to tools of war. Sparta raised warriors, not citizens. It thrived on destruction, feared the mind, crushed the soul, and called that strength. Athenians were molded to be thinkers, artists, leaders, and builders of a society that laid a foundation for the modern world and continues to influence it for the better. The negative rests.
Okay, so now they are going to prepare for the first crossfire. The crossfire is where they try to poke holes in each other's contention, trying to prove the other wrong, or reduce the ethos of the other's argument. They ask for a minute, they ask for 30 seconds. They get 3 minutes throughout the entire thing between rounds, collectively to try to get prepared questions and rebuttals.
Part of the interruption, Jasmine, Bussy, you're needed for dismissal.
Also, the papers that I handed out on the left, right, that column is for the affirmative. To the right, that column, if you have any notes or anything, is for the negative.
May I ask you a question? Yes, you may. You claim that Athens encouraged free thought, but are you aware that Socrates, a respectable philosopher within the Athenian community, was wrongfully he was wrongfully sent to death by his enemies because he was trying to teach the youth?
So Socrates wasn't killed because he was trying to teach the youth. The things he was trying to teach were considered dangerous. He was teaching a religion against the one they believed in, which was a cultural pillar for them. They believed that the gods brought life, death, water, food, all of that. He believed in a different one. He challenged that and made their world dangerous. That's why.
Thank you for your answer. May we ask you a question? You may. You stated that Sparta has a strong military, correct? Correct. How does having a strong military justify beating child soldiers, neglecting to feed them, and expecting devotion to Sparta until death?
Well, first, by ancient standards, that training was considered preparation for the future, not abuse. And in the Spartanagogy, which is the training program for Spartan children, the young children ages 7 to 12 are mostly taught things in theory, like reading, writing,
Thank you for your answer.
May I ask you a question?
You may.
You say that Athenian citizens had more freedom because they could vote in elections. Wouldn't you agree that that freedom only included adult men who were citizens, making up only about 10 to 20% of the total Athenian population?
That is true. Can you describe how the Spartan government was fair to its citizens when it was an oligarchy, which is not even close to the majority of the citizens voting?
May I ask you a question?
You may.
What do you have to say about Sparta using dogs to scare, intimidate, and attack helots?
Sorry, will you repeat that?
What do you have to say about Sparta using dogs to scare, intimidate, and attack helots?
Well, I mean, Sparta did have a slave population, yes, but so did Athens and just about every other.
Athens respected and treated its slaves as one of the households.
Do you have a source for that?
Yes, I do.
They call it.
All right, so that was the first crossfire. Now that each team is going to get up and present their rebuttals. Each rebuttal is in contention with one of their points. So it's to take one of the points that were presented of the other team and dispute it, refute it. They have 4 minutes to do this.
The negative has argued Athens encouraged open debate and free thought, while in reality, free thought and open debate had limits. A clear example of this is the trial and execution of Socrates. Socrates was a respectable philosopher within the Athenian community. He created the Socratic method and encouraged his students to use critical thinking skills. He was sentenced to death in the year 399 BCE for corrupting the Athenian youth. According to the article, Why Was Socrates Killed? Socrates was indicted on trumped-up charges brought against him by his personal enemies. He did not corrupt the youth of the city, but was rather their teacher, and he actively urged them to change their ways and to live rational and virtuous lives. This is most evident in his efforts to counter the arguments of the sophists who denied that there was an objective truth. Athens encouraged free thought until those thoughts challenged authority. The result of this was censorship, punishment, and occasionally execution. The negative has argued Athens' ambition made it a stronger city-state. However, in all actuality, Athens' ambition was what led to its downfall. After the Persian Wars, Athens took control and transformed the Delian League, originally a defensive alliance, into an empire. They used the Delian League's resources to glorify themselves, building monuments like the Parthenon with money meant for defense. Athens demanded power over its allies, creating tension within and outside of the empire. The greed showed by Athens and angered its allies and made Athens seem more like a tyrant than a leader. Eventually, this abuse of power sparked a rebellion and fueled the Peloponnesian War, which they lost. The article, How the Athenian Empire Caused Its Own Collapse, states, Athens could provide enough protection on her own that many states opted to pay tribute. At first, the League was true to its purpose, freeing the remaining holdouts of Persian influence in the Aegean. But over time, Athens revealed her imperialistic tendencies. Liberated cities were coerced into joining the League, and those who refused were colonized or put to the sword. Eventually, one member state, the island of Naxos, attempted to leave the alliance. Athens' response was quick and severe, laying siege to the city and enslaving its inhabitants. Over time, the inflow of funds and Athens' growing experience in the field of war made it increasingly difficult for any to leave the league. This contributed to an era of fear that would come to define Athens' reign of the Aegean. By 454 BCE, Athens lifted all pretense by moving the league's treasury from the island of Delos to Athens itself, completing the transition from alliance to empire. The negative is argued that Athens' education made it a better city-state to live in. However, their education system lacked inclusion, structure, and equality. The Athenian education system was limited only to male citizens, meaning both females and slaves were prohibited from receiving any form of education. Wealth also played a major role in the quality of education a student received. Education in Athens was mostly delivered through private tutors, and the financial status of a family directly affected the opportunities available to their children. Wealthy families could afford to hire renowned philosophers to teach their sons, while families in poverty often could not provide any education at all. In the article, The Education System in Ancient Greece, this is highly emphasized. The elites in Athens had greater resources to provide private tutors and a more comprehensive education for their sons. In contrast, the sons of less wealthy citizens might have received only basic literacy and numeracy skills, with limited exposure to philosophical or higher level intellectual training. The affirmative rests.
We must inform you of the glaringly obvious similarities between ancient Sparta and Nazi Germany before you agree with the resolution. Children in Sparta were born to serve Sparta. At 7, boys were sent to the Agoge, a military training center that groomed children to devote their lives to the oligarchy and military. Hitler Youth, an organization instigated by the Nazi government, mirrored and modeled their processes from Sparta, forcing children to conform to the nation's ideals. 5.4 million children in Germany conformed and committed to living by the ideals of the government. How can a city-state that gave rise to Nazi affairs be considered superior overall or in day-to-day life? Our opponents argue that Sparta promoted equality, but Spartan equality was merely an illusion to cover up forced conformity in response to 2 goals: conformity and military domination. Spartan boys underwent training that stripped them of their identities and molded them into identical soldiers without any twist in the matter. Even love is regulated. Men could not live with their wives until the age of 30, and marriages were kept secret. This was not equality. This was conformity forced through fear of retaliation. Socrates was executed for his difference in religious beliefs. In Athens, belief in the gods was a cultural pillar and considered a fundamental necessity, because the gods were the bringers of rain, food, life, and even death. So Socrates' death was not because he had a difference of opinion, it was because his theories to disapprove the gods were considered dangerous to people due to potentially angering the gods. The affirmative has placed their weight on this point, the weight of their point on the execution of one man. How does one man's execution take the entire culture of Athens? The Spartan lifestyle deemed it imperative that the Helot population be monitored through violence and controlled by fear. They supported eugenics to ensure that women produced stronger warriors, which were then scrutinized and killed if they were considered unfit. These unruly practices were admired by Adolf Hitler. In fact, Hitler greatly admired their military domination, and he attempted to mimic the Spartans' fear-based regimen, and instilled Sparta's principles in Nazi Germany. Additionally, Hitler took his twisted inspiration on treatment of the Jews from the Spartan institution named Krypteia, where the strongest and most rebellious helots were systemically slaughtered. His methods of degrading, belittling, eating, and killing Jews was a direct reflection of the Spartan treatment of the helots. This is an example of a modern-day Sparta and the catastrophic consequences it would have, as well as the morally disgusting reality and the unacceptable nature of the actions. Is this what you call a superior city-state? Our opponents highlighted that Spartan children received a childhood that was built on structure, but at what cost? From the moment of birth, Spartan infants were subjected to scrutiny. If a child was deemed weak or imperfect, they were thrown off of a cliff. For those who survived, life was harsh. At the tender age of 7, children were torn from families and placed in military barracks known as the Ogoje, where they were forced to sleep on the ground and given minimal food. Is this how you would define a superior city-state? Their training focused on survival skills, Spartan viewed as important, such as physical and mental conditioning, emphasizing combat skills, pain tolerance, and loyalty to the city-state. Their education was limited, often including only basic reading and writing, resulting in a lack of intellectual development. In the harsh Spartan lifestyle, there was no room for creativity, critical thinking, or personal identity. Unlike children in Athens, Athenians focused primarily on intellect rather than military strength. This focus was to improve a growing society. Intellect was a valued attribute and it was emphasized to their children. From birth, children were viewed as important vessels for the future. They were raised to become comprehensive individuals, not mindless instruments of war. We implore you to remember the resolution and understand that Sparta was not the superior society to live in. And be rest.
Now they have a 3-minute crossfire between the teams, again, to counter the rebuttals that have been brought to them.
Affirmative, ma'am. First question when ready. Time's up.
May I ask you a question?
Yes, you may.
If Socrates was killed because his thoughts were considered dangerous, does that not go against Athens' belief in freedom, particularly freedom of speech?
It doesn't necessarily go against the belief in the freedom of speech because it was considered a threat. So they killed him because he was potentially angering the things they believed in, the gods they believed in, that could have very bad consequences.
So you're saying since he went against the authority and against the system that he had to be killed?
No, I'm saying that this was a danger, a threat. I saw his teachings that way. May we ask you a question?
Thank you.
You may.
You quoted an article on education in ancient Greece. Did the article specify which city-state they were referring to?
Was that during the rebuttals?
Yes. Yeah.
That was referencing Athens directly.
Do you have a source? What is your source on that?
I'm sorry.
What is your source on that? Like, what is the site called? Website.
Yeah, where'd you find this? History.org. Yeah, history.org.
May I ask you a question? Would you say Athens had a better education system? If so, do you think it is fair that Athens' education was not available to all people in Athens, including women and slaves? Not to mention the fact that economic status had a huge effect on the quality of education a person would receive. Does that sound like a good and non-corrupt education system to you?
The education system may have not been
relatively positive for all citizens, but all citizens were able to be educated, like girls were allowed to be educated by their mothers, in turn by their in reading, writing, and math. Are you? Source? Children in ancient Greece. FactsandDetails.com.
May I ask you a question?
Yes, okay.
Okay. Now each team is going to get up and give their summaries of each. Their summaries of each is essentially them highlighting what they felt was their strongest or their best points to y'all. And they get 2 minutes.
Due to Sparta's gender equality, military prowess and valor, as well as the proficient education system praised by Plato himself, Sparta would be the better society to reside in over Athens. Because of Sparta's ability to view men and women on more of an equal basis, women and men alike were allowed to train their bodies to become stronger. According to the article, Gender Equality in Athens and Sparta, physical training started at an early age, and it was expected that girls and boys exercised the same way. This method yielded inverted gender equality, as females and males were expected to be equally strong. Sparta's ability to recognize women's strength put the city-states decades into the future, unlike Athens, which prevented its women from participating in politics and philosophy. To continue, Aristotle praised Sparta for its united education system. According to the article written by Avi I. Mintz, he states that Aristotle once said, "One might well praise the Spartans for this. They most of all pay serious attention to their children and do so in common." Furthermore, even Plato and Aristotle believed that the Athenian democracy could be unjust. It is stated that the article written by Matthew Mayer that democracy was another concern for Plato and Aristotle. They both believed that Athenians abused democracy to unjustly execute Socrates. Due to all the circumstances presented, Sparta undoubtedly had better gender equality, greater military strength and protection from threats, as well as an exceptional education system. It is for this reason we firmly and wholeheartedly agree with the resolution.
Athens was a superior ancient city-state to Sparta. Athens was formed on the value of enrichment, beginning with society, then family units to every person. Additionally, critical thinking and self-expression were supported. The furtherment of every single citizen was highlighted. Democracy was held highly among all citizens. Family life was incredibly important. Relationships between all members of the house were appreciated, and each citizen's ideas and thoughts were heard. Overall, Athenian society was a place for prospering thought and communication, something that had not been seen in other city-states. From birth, children were considered precious and encouraged to be. We implored the audience to remember the constructed. As a method we believe Athens is the superior city to Sparta, inspiring ancient
Chloe Grass, you're muted at the main office. office for early dismissal.
Please, what you leave behind is not what is engraved in stone, monuments and stone monuments, but what is woven into the lives of others. Can I get a press?
All right, then we'll have one final 3-minute crossfire. Just a second.
Aaliyah Preston, please come to the main office for a moment.
What the fuck? Yeah, let's get the conclusion.
All right, everyone, keep down just All right, final focus. Or great crossfire, yep. You already know that.
May I ask you a question?
Yes, you may.
Would you say that focusing on things like philosophy and art is more important than keeping the people safe from attack?
The focus on self-expression and individualism increased the quality of lives of Athenian Athenian people on a day-to-day basis. May we ask you a question?
You may.
Do you condone kidnapping?
No. Where are you going?
Were you aware that when young Spartans were to marry, they were expected to break into their bride-to-be's house, fight her relatives, so he would kidnap her? How does this brutal practice give Sparta the title of superior city-state?
Do you have a source for that?
Humanlibertext.org.
Can I ask who wrote that article and like what their credibility is, if you have it?
We do not have that, no.
Okay.
May I ask you a question?
had no political voice. A female Spartan had all of these rights. How could you say Spartan women had no rights?
Did Spartan women have political power? Did they have a political say in an oligarchy that was run by 30 geriatric men? I'd argue that that's not true because maybe ask you a question.
Athenian women were considered the foundation of household and therefore the society. Were Spartan women awarded an important role in society?
Can you repeat that one more time, please?
Athenian women were considered the foundation of the household and therefore the society. Were Spartan women awarded an important role in society?
Well, Spartan women were considered also the foundation of the household. Spartans believed that strong women birthed strong warriors, and women were generally revered.
Do women who are raised and treated like vessels for birthing strong warriors increase the quality of life and make them a superior city-state?
I think they were treated better than mere objects.
Okay. So now each team will present their final focus as a 2-minute little blurb that is just meant to sway you to their side. And their last mission attempt to get you to be persuaded to pick their side of the resolution.
As previously stated, Sparta undoubtedly had better gender equality than Athens. Sparta's society challenged gender roles in ancient Greece and played a role in strengthening women's equality in its society. In an article titled Women in Ancient Greece, it is stated that Spartan women were treated somewhat differently than in other states. For example, they had to do physical training like men, were permitted to own land, and could drink wine. Sparta's ability to appeal to the other part of the population automatically makes it the better and more optimal society to live in. On the other hand, women's roles in Athens were the exact opposite. According to Marilyn Elise, indeed, a woman's very existence was deprived. Females living in classical Athens were completely subjected to the domination by and control of an overbearing, misogynistic male population. They had no legal citizenship or human rights, and despite their necessary and important roles in society, they were continually disregarded as being inadequate and subhuman. Athens undoubtedly mistreated its women, viewing them as nothing more than mere objects to be used. Furthermore, Elise also states, according to Pomeroy, it has been estimated that as many as 20% of newborn Athenian girls were left deserted, if not in the streets, in places like the local garbage dump. It is apparent that Sparta valued its women unlike Athens, which did nothing but objectify and degrade them. Sparta's ability to allow women to share many commodities with men proves that the ancient civilization had the ability to view women as equal with men. Sparta's ability took greater care of all of its people rather than just its men. It is for this reason Sparta would be the better society to live in, the affirmative rights.
Imagine living in a civilization where your ideas are valued and you are considered an important part of the success of your city-state. That must have been how Athenians felt when their art was admired and their theories about the universe were met with curiosity and intrigue. Individuals were often embraced for their uniqueness and treated as equals and friends. Wouldn't you too like to be treated as an equal and a friend by those around you? What about your family? Athenian families were highly valued because they were the foundation of the city-state's vitality. Athenian mothers and fathers alike were encouraged to teach and engage with their children, setting a standard for the success of the next generations through love and support. Wouldn't you want to raise your children under the same standards? Wouldn't you want your children to feel like they had the ability to express themselves and their ideas in a society that did not shun them, but uplifted them and encouraged them in their creativity? The Athenian society was understanding its people and devoted to creating an environment where art, thought, economy, and individuals could thrive. As supporters of the Athenian society, we believe that you should base your decision on the resolution our debate focuses on. Athens was a better civilization to live in because of its freedom of self-expression, its strong family dynamics, and the structural integrity that was devised. The negative rests.
All right, before we move on to the voting and the judge's comments, let's give these kids another round of applause. All right, so the affirmative, they were pro-Sparta. They thought that would be the better civilization to live in. In the event you agree, based on what you saw, you had the better argument. Who agrees with that? Affirmative, pro-Sparta. All right, thank you. All right, the negative, you agree that Athens would be better. All right, Athens has it. Congratulations. Negative. Now, a word from our sponsors, a word from the judges.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attention. So I got to give a lot of credit to both teams. You did an excellent job of presenting concrete evidence, and I appreciate that greatly. Team Athens, you made a lot of great points about the culture, the art. However, it does appear that the economy and education was only available to some of your citizens, and none of those being female, which is probably about half the population. So therefore, I would have to say the evidence was stronger and well presented by Team Sparta, who rode that really well and took the fact that you had a great deal of gender inequality in Athens, and they made the most of that in their presentation, pointing out the differences and the advantages for women in particular to live in Sparta. So I'd have to say Team Sparta won that one.
All right, guys. So I'm just going to go with I'm pro-Athens, and this is really the main reason. I thought Sparta's focusing on military strength, equality, and education are great things. However, if that society is the basis for a Nazi society, I am not sure I could support that. Therefore, that's why I went pro-Athens. That was never addressed. You guys didn't cite that source. It'd be interesting if what the switch was. But really what you guys want to hammer down Sparta.
So we got some of the information from worldhistory.org, and then the other part on, let me find it. Oh, and then history.com.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it. Oh, actually, wait. Does anyone have any questions on the affirmative or the negative? If you have any, raise your hand. I'll bring you the mic. Does anyone have any questions? All right. Affirmative. Y'all believe the side you're arguing.
No.
I mean, I wouldn't want to live in either. I'd probably I wouldn't make it.
I wouldn't make it either, but I don't want to live in Sparta, but I also don't want to live in Athens, so, but, yeah.
All right, and negative to any of y'all.
I don't want to live there, but I believe that it's a better city state. Yeah, of the two, I choose Athens. Oh, yeah. I'd just die. I wouldn't make it.
Fair.
I think the Spartans are cooler though. So I think that settles it, you know.
All right, if there are no questions, we are done. Thank you all.